Hello everybody, my name's Ian and welcome to my channel, The Laughing Polyglot. Today I want to talk to you about why your English isn't improving and what you can start doing today to get back on track and start making progress towards fluency. First, I need to introduce Albert Mehrabian and his 7-38-55 rule of personal communication. If you've ever studied communications, you might have already heard about Albert Mehrabian and this concept. So I'm going to share a chart on the screen. What this is saying is that 7% of the meaning of our communication comes from our words. 38% of meaning comes from how we say those words. And 55% comes from our body language. Now, this isn't a drama class, so we're going to put the 55% aside. But what I want to look at is the other 45%. Why am I sharing this with you? Well, I think as language learners, we tend to be too word focused. We don't think about how to say something. And I think this is the source of many students' struggles. And the worst part about it is I think they're not even aware that this is the source of their struggling. So stick around to the end of this video and I'm going to share with you one simple thing you can start doing today to turn your attention to this aspect of the English language and to help you get back on track making progress towards English fluency. For those students who have ever taken a conversation class, whether in person or online, when your teacher asks you, what are your goals? What do you want to accomplish in our class? How many of you said, I want to learn more vocabulary and I want to be a fluent speaker? Be honest, I'm guilty too. I don't know how many times I've used these two very goals. Now, vocabulary is important, but what I have a problem with is the goal, I want to be fluent. Because I don't think we really understand specifically what changes we need to make, specifically what we need to do, and specifically how to make these changes in order to make progress towards our goal. I want to be fluent. I think this goal, it's too broad and it lacks any specific details or direction. Eventually, as a student, I realized it doesn't matter how much vocabulary I learn. I still felt like I wasn't making any progress towards my goal of being fluent in another language. I didn't feel like I was improving my speaking. So I tried to change my focus a little and I started asking my teachers, can you teach me how to express nuance? Can you teach me how to be funny? Can you teach me how to be sarcastic? Can you teach me how to be whatever? But I was still going about it the wrong way. It was still word-centered because I was asking my teachers, can you teach me what to say to be funny? Can you teach me what to say to be sarcastic? This isn't a topic I've ever come across in any of my textbooks while I've been learning Thai or Vietnamese. For any English students, ESL students, have you ever come across a chapter or a section in any of your textbooks that explains how to express nuance in the English language? How to be funny, how to be sarcastic, how to be whatever. I think this is something you can't really learn in itself. You can't really teach in itself because you can't focus on how to say something if you have nothing to say. And it wasn't until I was teaching that I started to become aware of any of this. Only after working frequently with a student over an extended period of time, I remember my first aha moment. My student had this spontaneous outburst. We were exchanging opinions on something and my student really wanted me to understand their viewpoint. And they were trying to be funny. And it ended in this explosion of laughter. And the first thing, I was like, wow, that was amazing. Like you sounded like a different person. Just the rhythm of your speech, it was just so natural. I felt like I was having a conversation with one of my coworkers in the office for a second. It was completely different from how you usually talk during our conversations. And number two, I asked myself, do I really sound like that? Because it was at that moment that I realized that the student was actually mimicking me in a way. They had picked up some of the patterns of my expression and they were now incorporating it in their own speech. I realized that my students weren't just learning vocabulary. They weren't just learning how to use verb tenses correctly because I'm constantly correcting them. They weren't just learning slang, they were also learning how to express nuance. They were learning patterns of expression, intonation, whatever you want to call it. And that class really changed my perspective of what I thought about what I was doing as a teacher and opened up the possibilities of what I could do as a student to learn languages. And it became a part of the discussion I had with my students about what we could accomplish together, how we could learn more than just new vocabulary. We could learn patterns of expression, intonation, nuances, whatever you want to call it. And one day I found myself giving my student homework. I asked them to find 3 comedians, search the internet, search YouTube, find 3 comedians and listen to some of their jokes and focus on the way they use their voice to tell those jokes. I told them, these comedians, they're the masters of Mehrabian's 38%. They know how to say things to make you laugh. And I remember my student, they didn't really know of any comedians, so I gave them some suggestions. But they were so excited. They came back and they told me, wow, this is so amazing. I actually did my own research and I found a comedian I really like, Russell Peters. And I'm so excited. I can't wait to talk more about this in our next class. So I started wondering, where was this all coming from? Why comedians? Why stand-up comedy? Why had I been writing stand-up comic routines in different languages? And English too, as a way to captivate my students' attention and have a little fun? What was the significance of stand-up comedy? Why did it keep coming up over and over again? So I think I was a little ahead of myself, but then I realized, just as I told my student, yes, comedians, they're the masters of Mehrabian's 38%. They're masters of how to say things. And that's not to say that they're the only masters of communication, but I think stand-up comedy is the perfect starting point for anybody who's struggling at improving their English to become aware of how people can say things. How people can say things to be a more effective communicator. And the more I thought about it, stand-up comedy, it's the perfect model. It's one person. It's funny, so it's very memorable. We always remember the punchline in a joke. And every joke's like a lesson. You can tell these jokes to your friends or family. You can mimic the comedian's intonation, their patterns of expression, and eventually I think you can incorporate these patterns of expression and make them your own and take your English, your speaking ability to a whole nother level. And I realized further that when we start using these different patterns of expression or intonation or whatever you want to call it, whether you're doing it intentionally or you're just picking it up from the people you're speaking with or listening to, that's when you hear the difference. That's when you feel the difference. That's progress. It doesn't matter how much vocabulary you learn. If how you're saying things isn't changing, you don't feel like anything's changing. It doesn't feel like you're going anywhere. And at this point, I saw the potential that stand-up comedy had to be a powerful teaching aid in helping us become more aware of this aspect of language and how it could help us improve our speaking, how it could help us speak better English. So I think some of you might already have an idea where this is going. What you can start doing today to improve your English, start listening to stand-up comedy. And listen to how the comedians tell their jokes. Listen to how they say things, how they exaggerate, how they downplay, how they mislead you. What they do to make you laugh. Remember the punchline. And the jokes that make you laugh, tell your friends and family. And by doing this, you're going to learn different ways to express yourself. You're going to learn how to express nuance. You're going to learn different intonation. And it's just a starting point. It's the perfect point to develop an awareness of how to say things. And it's going to help you become a better speaker and help you improve your English and get you back on track to achieving your goals. So that's it. Simple, right? That's one thing you can start doing today to improve your English. And come back and tell us in the comments the comedians that you found that you really like, or if there's already a comedian that you really like, tell us in the comments. So thank you for watching this video, and if you found any of it at all insightful, interesting or helpful, please consider subscribing to my channel. I'm dedicating this channel to language, and I want to share with you all the insights I've had over the years studying various languages as well as teaching English. I want to share some of the things that some of my students tell me are some of the more difficult things about the English language. And if you haven't seen already, check out my stand-up comedy. I'm not a stand-up comic, but as I said, stand-up comedy is just this recurring theme in my language learning and language teaching journey. So have a look and let me know, am I funny? Did I fail? And as always, guys, let's get fluent or have fun trying.